right. If anything, you can see AI does a lot for our skin tone. So today's journey is going to be something that we take you through. We're going to give you some background and walk you through the process that we went through and to figure out what works and what doesn't work when you're looking at your adoption of Copilot and technologies and being able to actually really put some wood behind the arrow and get it to work correctly. So go ahead and move forward. Let's talk gut check here. This is a reality check. People don't like change. People don't like when you move their cheese. And AI is really only going to have an effective return on investment and really actually impact your business if it's viewed as transformational. And your stakeholder team needs to be on board, all the way from the C-suite all the way down to the individual contributor. If you don't have them on board, it can go off the rails very quickly. How do we do that? There is a better and easier way. And prompting and getting these technologies to work for you, it takes a little bit of refinement, but it's not something that takes that long. And it's not a dangerous or dirty job, but it is going to tackle those dull, disruptive, and draining jobs. I'm able to do things now in 15 minutes. It took me 2 hours in the past. Start small, baby steps, work through the baby steps, measure, improve, make changes, and iterate a lot. The smaller, the better for the first one. All right, move forward. We went through our own Copilot journey. It's happened a little over a year. And we use M365. We're 100% in the cloud. We don't have any domain controllers or file servers. We live the dream. And because of that, all of our stuff is set up to use modern technology and the right security and the right boundaries and the right compliance. We were able to really adopt Copilot and all the AI technologies that we use, specifically the Microsoft ones, because we were so invested in those, right? And so that's a key thing here when you're looking at our journey as we walk through it today. Our level of adoption of those really is what also contributed to our success. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Jim, and Jim's going to take you through it. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. As many of you may know, this has been around for a while. The advent of ChatGPT was over 2 years ago, and it wasn't too far after that Microsoft announced that they were working on this product called Copilot. Not many of us had access to it right away, including their managed partners like ProArch. But over time, we started to learn what it was going to be capable of. And even before we could get our hands on it ourselves, and again, like I said, even though we were a partner, we didn't get any early advantages to actually getting access to the product. But we did start playing around with tools like ChatGPT and other generative AI solutions. And we could quickly see how important this was going to be to transform our business and our customers' businesses as well. So in the January timeframe is when Microsoft finally stated that they were going to make this product available to the general Microsoft population and open it up to organizations of any size. So we decided to take advantage of that and really come out of the gate raring, so to speak. During that initial month of announcement, we did the first very important steps in this process, and that was to go through our environment and look at our data governance and make sure that things were set up properly so that we were not being exposed from a security perspective. And that is something that is of an utmost importance. I was just reading an article from Harvard Review today stating that by far the biggest obstacle today for most organizations adopting generative AI and AI solutions are those security concerns. So we did our due diligence. Again, as Greg said, we live and breathe this stuff and have our own security practice. So we were on top of those things, which enabled us to begin the journey. And we quickly just brought a group together internally to start talking about how we were going to take advantage of these technologies, as well as what type of solutions we were going to go to market with. We select a leader of our Copilot initiative in the February timeframe. You're looking at that person right here. And we also formally brought together a group of key stakeholders. So we actually have 4 people who sit on our business productivity Copilot adoption panel that all of our internal users can come to with questions, with guidance and advice. And we also then met as that group to start to begin to understand the people within our business units and what types of pain points and challenges existed for those leaders. We actually sent out a survey to those teams and asked them to provide us some information about what are the things that are causing those 3Ds, dull, disruptive, or draining work, right? Things that take you away from being able to be productive and coming up with your best ideas. So in March timeframe, we started developing use cases based on the feedback that we received from those business heads. And the purpose of that was to start testing and evaluating how we are going to actually bring these solutions to the organization to truly start the process of creating a culture of AI. So now we're a couple months in. In the April timeframe, we started rolling out our first use cases to our employees. This included going and identifying a initial persona or role within the organization that we were going to target and bring them training, bring them example prompts that we wanted them to use, get them familiar with Copilot as a product, and also start to build some key metrics that we were going to make sure that they were actually using it in the way we expected, although we did encourage people to use it in unexpected ways as well, so that we could demonstrate return on investment and return on value. By May, we had identified additional use cases, and we set up ourselves to have a cadence of one persona per month to actually continue to join users too. In June, we rolled out 2 additional use cases, continued training sessions. By July, we hit our stride. We were surveying those initial users, sending out some form surveys, which coincidentally, we used Copilot to help us generate. And then we were refining at that point to make sure that if there were things that we missed in our training or things that were new use cases, or we could modify those use cases, we could do that. Some of the initial use cases, and this is by no means all of them, we currently have over 70 users that are licensed for Copilot. You might come as a surprise. We do get internal use licenses for a lot of things from Microsoft because of our relationship and our advanced specializations. Copilot is not one of them. So we very much had to decide that this was an investment that was worthwhile because, like everyone else, we were going to be paying $30 an individual to use this solution. So the first thing we looked at were our account teams. And one of the biggest things that we decided was there was a great opportunity here to help them capture quality meeting notes out of teams. It's probably one of the things that Copilot excels at the most, and one of the things that most organizations find the quickest return on investment for. We also created some prompts for them to help them translate those conversations they were having in those meetings into our proposals, into clear business objectives. And then we also told them we wanted them to use Copilot to help them prepare for client meetings better, so that they can understand that organization and also research solutions as to what is the best fit for the products and services that we offer. We then turn our focus to our service desk, or some may refer to them as help desk engineers. And we gave them the task of transcribing every customer call, every customer engagement, so that we could start collecting better ticket notes in our ticketing system. We really felt that there was an opportunity here to improve on what we were already doing, and why not take advantage of Copilot to make that simpler for them. We also encourage them to use the chat in Teams or within the browser, Edge, or just Copilot on the web and in a different browser, to use it as a tool to troubleshoot issues and identify potential solutions to problems. And so it became their troubleshooting companion, or so to speak. Additionally, and again, this is not a knock on our technical staff. People excel at different types of things. Communication sometimes is not their strongest suit. So we encourage them to use a Copilot within Outlook to help better create responses to send to our customers and improve engagement, so that there was less to be confused or misunderstood in our conversations. And again, it vastly improved the output that we saw when our Help Center folks were communicating with customers. Next group of people that we looked at were our project managers. They do a lot of communication already, though, unlike a lot of our technical people, the project managers, typically do excel at communication. But there's a lot they need to communicate sometimes, and it's easy to leave some things left out or to miss a point or an objective. So we really encourage them to use Outlook in drafting email based on the targeted audience, and also to send out status updates for things like our projects. Very much like with the Help Center team, we encourage them to use chat in Teams and in Edge to compile status notes from meetings, and also from our ticketing system to draft summary updates. And then lastly, again, we want to make sure we're recording all those engagements, so they are now also recording and transcribing all touch points with the customers wherever they can and wherever the customer is comfortable with us doing that. And then lastly, again, like as I said, this is not all of the use cases, but we turn to our marketing assistants and we work with them to help them generate better draft content more faster and even more polished than sometimes is the case, by using Word and PowerPoint, by giving and feeding our samples and template solutions to them so that they have an advantage and they can accelerate their ability to generate content. Again, you're seeing a pattern here. We also gave them a use case where we wanted them to capture internal meeting notes so that they could understand, for people like Greg and myself who are solution architects and the salespeople, where the requirements stood on creating the materials that we needed for marketing and giving feedback on content. And then lastly, we used it as a way to solicit feedback on essentially how to improve that interaction with the client and figure out what would work better in reaching those customers and having a better impact. Really the crux of what marketing people are expected to do. Now, around the steps for Copilot adoption. This can seem like a lot. This can, as Greg pointed out, things that are worth doing a lot of times are things that are hard to do. It's not necessarily that they're complex, it's just that they take a little discipline and they require a plan to get there. As it relates to the steps for M365 Copilot adoption, and for those of you out there that still call it Copilot for M365, I will forgive you. Microsoft is constantly changing the names of things, but it now actually is M365 Copilot. Step one here is maybe step zero before that. Again, I talked about the security component and making sure that's all set to go. Step one is really looking at how do we get the most bang for the buck straight out of the gate. So identifying those high value targets, those groups in the organization that are ripe for getting that adoption off the ground. And typically this is around looking at ways to streamline efficiency. And also you want to work with a group that is comfortable with embracing new technology. If you take the folks that hardly ever touch a computer, that's going to probably lead to some unforeseen results and some negative impacts. The next one is to really look at what are the things in their day-to-day that are keeping them from unlocking their full potential of what their specific goal in that organization is. So if I'm a salesperson and I spend way too much time on trying to respond to emails or doing research, let's try and reduce the effort there so they could spend more time talking to customers and bringing them solutions that are valuable to them. So here it's important to coordinate with those business heads. And I say this a lot when I deal with our customers. Copilot adoption is a business initiative. It's not an IT initiative. And you have to get the business leaders on board and work with them very closely. If at the end of the day, all we're doing is having IT dictate to the organization, this will fail. I guarantee it. And the next thing too is to identify those pain points, as I mentioned already, but more importantly, identify the pain points and knowing the features and capabilities of Copilot, align them to something that Copilot does to make sure that we can map that out for them. And you're going to see some information in regards to this in some workbooks that we used in the next slide. So step 3 here is, once you've identified those pain points, once you've identified the high value target, start building the use cases. What's feasible and what is the potential of return on value, return on investment for implementing that? Again, we turn back to if it's our help desk team, and they're required to put in copious and very detailed notes. If after every call, they have to take 10, 15 minutes to fill in those ticket information based on the conversation, based on what they did with our customers, that takes away from actually servicing customers. Whereas if we can bring Copilot in, and now it only takes them 2 minutes, that means call ends, whether it was an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours with that client, they can document what occurred and move on to helping the next customer. And the next thing is about developing the tools and the prompts. So making sure that they are educated on how to use the tools and also providing them some sample prompts. Prompting is an art and a bit of a science as well. And people are not going to necessarily take to it immediately. So it is something you need to keep training them on and give them some examples. And Microsoft has a lot of this within Copilot itself. There are prompt suggestions all over the place, but when it comes to your own specific prompts, it's important that you build those for the roles and the use cases that you're looking to implement. And then finally, it's about the rubber hitting the road, implementing and managing that, creating that customized training for that specific group in the way that they're going to use Copilot. I would also suggest building what's called a center of excellence, where you have a hub of knowledge that people can come and look at all the time. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on, as well as an advisor group. Someone within the organization needs to drive this. And it should be someone who has a passion for this. And I guess that's why in our organization, I got that role. I spent a lot of time not only learning about Copilot, but other AI technologies and bringing that forth and communicating that. I apologize, my screen went dark there for a second. I had one more point on the last slide, and that is you need to optimize as needed, right? So you need to be tracking how this is being used, how the teams are adopting it, how they're using it in each application, and make sure that you can come back and do some refresher training. So in this case, this is a scenario workbook that we used. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. This is not even all of the content that's within there, but this helped us define our business objectives. The first table there is about the enabling technology we're going to use for the use case. And the second part is a roadmap for how we are going to continue to develop the use case over time, right? It's not just, here's the use case, take it and do whatever you can with it until you can't use it anymore. It's about really taking it and then expanding it over time. So again, the description here is using Copilot to capture notes for our CRM system. The persona or role was the account executive. In this case, the technology we're going to use was ready-made. We didn't have to build anything ourselves, or it wasn't custom. The dependencies were things like Copilot Teams, Copilot for Word, and HubSpot, which is our CRM. And then we gave them a simple sample prompt, as I said before. So in this case, the sample prompt is review. The slash there allows us to point to my Copilot to a specific meeting. So the name of the meeting, I want you to draft a paragraph of a business objective for a proposal for whatever solution we were proposing, and then include a relevant justification that pertains to that organization's industry, their market, their vertical. And then also, based on the meeting notes, see if there were any objections in that meeting so that we can call those out as part of writing those business objectives for the proposal. So now our sales teams have the ability to go and reuse that prompt over and over again when they're going ahead and drafting business objectives based on having those pre-sales meetings with those customers. And then down below, you can see the service roadmap. So initially, the service roadmap was just training them and supporting them on Copilot and Teams and in Sales Copilot, if that's available to you. We began developing the business objectives within the sales proposals. By month 3 through 6, we decided we're going to go ahead and collect feedback on improvements. Month 6 through 9, we began actively looking at the quality of the content generated and accuracy of information. And then by month 12, we want to be able to extend not just from the point of writing business objectives, but other areas of proposals as well. So it's very important, as I said before, that you train your people on this. You can't just assume they know what they're doing because they're using it in their personal life or they watch a lot of YouTube. Because what you're asking them to do is use AI in a very specific way in their job. So we built 1-hour customized training sessions for each role or persona that we rolled out. We walked them through, showed them how the use cases that we were proposing for them, and actually how to use them within the applications. We also sent out frequent weekly emails about trying things within the applications themselves as well. We set up that center of excellence as I talked about before, and we did about a month later, we did a follow-up training. So we sat down with those teams for the 30-minute session. We let them ask questions. We let them talk to one another to see what was working, what was, and then we went on from there. And then lastly, they knew and continue to know that there's additional assistance that they could always reach for. So as they start, their minds start thinking about, okay, I've used AI in this way at this particular instant, where can I take this next? So we'll do random AI sessions with them, talk about how other groups are using it in the organization, and then they bring me ideas. Hey, Jim, can we do this with Copilot? Can I call you this Friday and we work through something for a half an hour? This is where I'd like to give you a nice, good example. We had a salesperson within the organization who had a list of customers, and these were just business names, didn't have addresses for any of them, didn't really know what their contact information was. We used that to essentially build an address list and then continued to use AI to be able to say, okay, we want to look at places that are within a 2-hour drive of this individual and be able to group them together in sets of 5. And now he's got a whole plan of going out and visiting new customers within his area based on just having a list of company names. So that's a tremendous benefit, and something that would have taken hours to do was literally just maybe 2 half-hour sessions with that salesperson. So there are plenty of resources that can help you drive Copilot adoption. I mentioned a center of excellence. Microsoft has guidance out there about how to build a center of excellence. If you happen to partner with us, we have a template that we can help you stand up in your SharePoint environment that, again, acts as this hub of knowledge. It's training modules. It's your own internal recordings that you may be doing with your teams. It's a discussion board with your AI adoption advisory group. There's ways to publish the use cases and the prompts, you name it. You can see in that middle image, that's where, coming out of our center of excellence, our account teams know, well, if I go to the center of excellence and I can't remember which use cases we're supposed to be doing and what the sample prompts are, we have them posted there. And then lastly, Microsoft has what's known as the Microsoft Copilot Academy. If you subscribe, and I understand not everybody does, but if you subscribe to Viva Learning, there is an entire academy that you will get access to that's all around Microsoft Copilot. And they're what we call snackable training modules. They're typically a few minutes each. People can come in here and just go through the whole litany of training, or they can just pick out the ones that they know are important to them to become more knowledgeable on a specific aspect of Copilot within a specific application. Keeping in mind, Copilot is not a single thing, right? It's literally everywhere within the Microsoft 365 apps world now, including things like Loop, including things like Whiteboard, including things like Stream, in Forms. It is everywhere.
It's in Notepad.
So it's in Notepad now too, and Paint, believe it or not. If you haven't checked it out, it's in all those applications. So some additional use ideas. Microsoft has an entire website that goes through Copilot use cases based on various roles and personas within your organization. But some ideas here. We talked about help desk agents. You could use it to help them update their support documentation by using Copilot in Word to go through to your various knowledge bases to pull information in, or just to write procedures. We do it now. It's a phenomenal tool to write procedures. With customer service groups, you can use it to determine root cause by looking at specific information that comes out of those conversations with your users to see if there's any type of signal that there is a challenge or type of conflict between your customer service team and the customer. We've done this. Greg can speak to this. We actually did this one time as well, and it's unbelievable the information you get back. Finance and legal, you can use it to summarize contracts. Everybody knows that those can put you to sleep, but you can definitely use it to quickly get to the point of what you're looking for so that you don't have to necessarily read through every last detail, although a lot of times finance and legal will do that anyways. For human resources, great tool to create interview questions. I have a chatbot agent I've created that actually can take a resume from a potential candidate and score it against the matrix and show you what that individual would score. And that's very unique and specific to our organization. It's not generic to any job or any type of technical role within any company. It's specific to ProArc itself. For marketing, you can use it for things like research. They're probably the big power users when it comes to things like Word and PowerPoint. And then sales. Again, this is not just a hypothetical. Responding to an RFP. We built an agent at ProArc that helps us respond to RFPs more quickly. That is a very complex and very time-consuming procedure if you've ever done that. And we built an agent that points to a document library that has all kinds of resources that can quickly help us respond. And then we craft and kind of tailor it to what needs to be done, but saves us hours of time. So now we're going to talk a little bit about calculating the ROI and value. And because this may be the thing that ultimately decides whether a tool like this gets implemented or not. So it's important that you have ways to actually identify how it's impacting your organization and how deep that adoption is becoming. So some tools that we use, the first one is Viva Insights. For the longest time, again, Microsoft used to require that you had a Viva Insights license. This is something that can be set up in your team's application, but Viva Insights will surface this thing called a Microsoft Copilot dashboard for the folks that you give access to it. But it comes with a wealth of information, which Microsoft's even creating more tools than just this. But if this was the only tool alone, this would probably be enough for most organizations. So you can see there on the first thing, it shows what's our adoption rate. Out of the 68 or so users, we have 99% of our users, they're actively using their Copilot licenses. And if we find that there's users who aren't and they haven't taken to it, and we've spoken to them and tried to get them to actually use it more, and they're just resistant, we will take that license and give it to someone else again, right? Because that's $30 a month. We want to make sure that people are using this. And under the second area, we can actually see by particular business units or particular departments within our organization how that adoption rate is trending. And then lastly, but not necessarily all of what we have the ability to actually look at what is the financial impact to the organization. We can see based on an average hourly rate and all of the applications that are being used and the time spent using them, what is the assisted value of Copilot to our organization? So we're going to talk about how that's impacted us on the next slide. How has that affected ProArc specifically? So how do we demonstrate this? Again, we look at things on the Viva Insights dashboard like the adoption rate. We also analyze the reports from the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, which can show us on an individual basis, when's the last time they used a specific Copilot function within which particular apps and how frequently they use it. So it's not just about the ability to see, are they using it and how frequently, but you can go down to the user level and say, I noticed that this person in marketing should be using it in Word a lot. They're using it in a lot of different areas, but they're not using it in Word. That's odd. We should probably sit down with them, talk about it, and see what we can do to help them utilize it better in that particular scenario. As I mentioned before, we can demonstrate the assisted hours and the financial impact. We can also upload our surveys to that dashboard to see the user sentiment and where folks are seeing the most benefit from this. And that will lead us to being able to identify additional opportunities. As I mentioned already, the admin reports, they're really about getting long-term per user statistics. You can get that as a CSV file, and oddly enough, you can use Copilot to analyze it and create beautiful graphs that you can then use to put into PowerPoint using Copilot to give your leadership team a report every month, like I have to do. And then lastly, we can identify where specific users may need assistance. So by the numbers, and this is the average over since last March or last April, we have about a 97% adoption rate. We have a few people we have to go and tap on the shoulder every once in a while, say, hey, you should be using this more often. Let's talk about ways to introduce it into your workflow. And the Viva Insights today gives you a 28-day rolling average. I've been told by Microsoft that's going to change. You're going to get more longer views of the information. As of last month, we had 2 hours of assisted work. for those 68 users, which translates to about $10,000 of labor, which gives us about an $8,000 monthly return on investment. Or if you do spread that out over a full year, we're getting close to about $100,000 of assisted, it's about $120,000 of assisted labor with an ROI of about $100,000. Is that $30 investment in those 68 or 70 people worthwhile? I think the numbers speak for themselves. Additionally, just some basic statistics, and these are things that there's a lot more data out here than what this slide presents, but last 28-day period, we've had 400 plus team meetings summarized. And now that's crazy to think that we have more than 400 meetings a month, and that's probably a very high fraction of the meetings we have are all being summarized if people are licensed for Copilot. We've seen 400 plus emails that were assisted in composing. We saw things like PowerPoint and Word where users had 400 times where they helped kickstart the drafting process, whether it's just changing a section of the document or even beginning an entire draft from whole cloth. And then lastly, we've had about 425 plus chats. We were able to synthesize the key points within that chat conversation and help us define tasks that we need to get accomplished. So keeping people on point and being able to get what they need to get done. So we built a tool, and there's a QR code here on the screen. You're more than welcome to take a look at that. If you don't like QR codes and you're security minded and don't trust them, the link is also there on the page that you can manually type in. But this calculator, again, is on our webpage. You can go out there and plug in your own numbers and to see the kind of what you're going to be your return on investment. When could you be expect to break even based on your investment? What is the total savings, or sometimes we call that the assisted hours, both on a yearly, monthly, and then what's the net monthly savings or your true ROI? And this is, again, freely available to anyone in the world to go out and use and just plug in some numbers to get a baseline of what you could expect, assuming you do your adoption correctly. So at this point, I'm going to stop talking and hand it back to my partner here, Greg, and he's going to talk about some specific voices of our end users who are
real live people. Yeah, and they're folks that I work with on a daily basis. So I'm going to introduce you to them, but I'm going to talk about where their Copilot journeys were. So Rich is one of our senior sales executives. I work with him on pre-sales. We're on a lot of meetings with customers together, and he's one of the first of our sales team that we approached to really embrace this. Transcripting of calls, he loves the transcripting of calls, and the summary of action points, right? And just to be clear, I just showed him the other day that you can go to a meeting we had on December 29th during the lull, and you can go and open Copilot and ask it questions about those meetings and re-summarize it if you happen to do that. And it's just immensely helpful to him. He does a lot of research with it, using both the Copilot for web, but also research inside the company, researching our marketing. I need some marketing information on this particular product or a Barracuda firewall or something to that effect. And he can use that for research. He's not using it as much for email. And I would actually say myself, I'm probably not using it as much as I did in the beginning because I use the new Outlook. They just released it and it works a little better now. So I think the uptake will be better. But he really likes the accuracy. The transcript gets it right, all the way down to tone. And you can ask it, what was the tone? Was Greg happy or sad or mad or that type stuff? The key takeaways. And clients are now, a lot of the clients that he works with on a regular basis, and we're having meetings with over and over, they're actually requesting those transcripts because they see them as just as valuable, right? Even though they're a member of the meeting, since they're not inside our organization, they don't by default see the transcripts. So we're starting to share those transcripts, and Rich really likes that. All right, so now we're going to switch to somebody from our wonderful support team. Sam runs our support team, and all of the bugs and issues at bay. And he's real big about meeting notes. He has a lot of meetings, both with his engineers and with customers. And sometimes they're a little contentious because we're dealing with problems or issues or server down or bugs or CrowdStrike, who knows, right? So he loves being able to get the meeting notes from that because you just don't have time to focus on the here and now because you're in a firefighting situation. And then he takes those notes and he builds upon them. He is using Outlook and replies more. I think you can tell a little bit if your teammates are using it because you see a kinder, gentler them. I know people have told me that my actual email replies are not as nice as the Copilot version. Wholeheartedly agree with. He really was surprised at how the integration with Office apps is continually evolving, right? When we first started, Copilot in Excel was worthless. We just could not find a way to use it. And now we're at a point where, especially with its Python integration, it's really starting to get some rubber on the road, and we're really starting to see that. He expects his use to continue to expand, but we're about to get into some more modern management stuff with him, where he'll be able to use Copilot to ask it questions about his support type things, like how many hours are we spending on this particular supporting Windows Server 2012 R2, right? Those are the type of things that he wants to do in the future. All right, now let's go to our biggest skeptic. What did we say early on? We said win over the skeptics, right? And Amelia was our definite skeptic. She didn't like it at first, and she didn't really want to use it. She had used GPT on her own, but just really didn't see how something like ChatGPT could be useful in a business sense. You could ask it to help you write a poem or something like that, I think was her. And once we got her in, especially she's project manager, she is managing multiple projects, keeping plates spinning, making sure nothing hits the ground. And with all that, there's a lot of moving parts. And this really helps her now focus on having the meeting and capturing the salient points and very quickly moving on to these are the action items. Here's who's assigned. Every once in a while, we'll get the wrong person assigned for it, but now she can fix it. So it's generating 95% of what she needs. She's then refining that 5%. Whereas before, the meeting would finish, and now there's another 30 minutes to get all the notes together and get everything going. It just really wasn't working for her. She's a big fan of Copilot. And 15 minutes a meeting, and she probably has more meetings than I do. She's surprised that this technology and this change is actually so useful because she's not real big on change. I gave her the book, Who Moved My Cheese, to help her understand change and change management. And for somebody who doesn't like change and doesn't like things to move, she's been real adoptive and went from our biggest skeptic to probably one of our biggest proponents. And I think there's a lot more that she's going to want to do with Copilot going forward, especially as it starts to move into Planner and some of the other things that we might be able to use in our project management office, our PMO. All right, moving on. So that's three folks that are in daily interactions with us and that we got feedback directly from them. But what kind of things did we learn? Like, what's the practical things that we learned from using Copilot, right, throughout the company? It's very valuable. It's valuable, but it does require you to make a time commitment. But the time commitment returns so much more time to do the things that you need to do, right? Now, not everybody's going to be on board. You're going to have a bunch of folks that are going to be like, I'm not touching that thing. I'm not getting anywhere near it. It's going to lie to me. It's going to hallucinate. What we say is, look, you're the subject matter expert. It's just going to do the blocking and tackling for you. You still need to know how to do special teams and how to score touchdowns, right? But it's going to do the blocking and tackling. So you just need to let it do what it does best and you do your stuff. So you're going to have to win those folks over. You're going to need somebody like Jim, an AI evangelist. Jim, I think if he could have a parade about AI every day, Jim would be having a parade. He is one of our biggest evangelists. And when we're struggling or not doing so well, he helps push through. It is constantly improving. It's a weekly occurrence that I see, oh, hey, that's right. The Copilot's now its own little doodad up in the top of Outlook. And it used to be just on the taskbar, and then it used to be here. They're making refinements. If any of you are using the new Outlook, it's changing a lot more than the old Outlook, naturally. So just understand that if you pick it up and you're like, wow, that's not really that useful, just wait. Just give it some time. Now, you got to have some good use cases. You got to really have some heavy hitters. Meetings, meeting notes, summaries, action items, that's a heavy hitter. But then you got to branch out from that. So like with Jim, he designed a Copilot for proposals. And we're using that now inside our team, and we're learning and we're giving feedback. And there's going to be a day when we can create a proposal in half the time it takes as it is today with the right inputs and the right things. And then you just do a little spit polish and then you get it out the door. It takes us 2 or 3 weeks sometimes to do a proposal. It'd be great to do that in half. And your use cases are going to drive into where you're going to roll out your licensing, right? Because you're not going to want to just light it up for everybody. You're going to want to, like Jim was talking about earlier, you're going to want to get that center of excellence. You're going to want to get some early adopters and get some evangelists and get them going, and then say, okay, now you need to spread it off into these other teams. We used to call that back in the day a power user, right? A power user was the one IT deputized to evangelize that technology out to the other users. You're going to have the same thing. You need to have that. Move to next. So agents. Start developing agents. I didn't even know how simple it was to develop an agent till Jim showed me as our evangelist. And I use Copilot personally in a personal thing, but I also use it at work. And in the personal thing, I'm actually looking at some agents to help me in my volunteer with the scouts and some of the scouting stuff. So don't just limit it to just your work if you're able to do it outside of work. But agents are what's going to be trained and be able to get better and better, right? Instead of just using the plain Copilot web or the one that's in Teams, get yourself an agent, feed it some good curated information, and train it and get it to do a lot better. Integration with third party is just a daily basis. You get new stuff. What's that, Jim?
So I was just going to add that. I was just going to add that for the agents, that's something that's now available for Copilot for everyone, right? It sits in Teams. There's also agents in SharePoint. So agents are pretty easy to develop and create. They take some time to fine tune, but don't be afraid of them. And really, it's where you start to create some really powerful solutions for very specific use cases.
Good point. And start using it in all the places that Copilot's at. And like Jim said earlier, it's becoming pervasive, right? It's embedding itself into all of the different Microsoft ecosystems, but also third parties, right? I would really love to see it integrate with our PSA and use Copilot instead of the homegrown AI that vendor X or vendor Y wants to do. I'd rather have Copilot and have it have a connection into that and have one Copilot to say rule them all, right? Because then you get used to the prompting and the training and the use of it. You don't have to keep learning every little idiosyncrasy of every single AI chatbot that's out there. So integrate it into your collaboration. That's your biggest bang for the buck, and that's going to get your most folks who are skeptics. Let's move into the next one, which is waiting for it to change. So what did we do? Well, some of this is if we had it to do over again, so it's from our lessons learned, but we did some of these things, and then some of these we would do if we had a chance to have a Wayback Machine and do it all over. You got to have that evangelist group, and we did form that, but maybe a little later than we should have. Identify those roles, those personas, and go for some pain points, some low-hanging fruit, something that's just wasting a bunch of time. What you're trying to do is you're trying to turn folks into brain surgeons, not butchers, right? You don't want brain surgeons working at a butcher shop. It's not a good use of their skills. So you want to get your folks back up and doing that. Let Copilot take care of those dull and tasks that just drain people's complete energy every day. You want to take all your pain points, put them out on a map, and track those. And the stuff that Jim showed you earlier, where we're using Viva Insights, that can really track to those pain points. And you're going to have to get some tailored prompts. People are going to have to get real good at prompting, right? Asking their questions and giving the right information to get better results. Because you're dealing with large language models here. Every single letter and word you put in there crafts the response, right? The better the prompt, the better the response. Simple as that. And go for some proof of concepts and training around that and do a rinse and repeat type training. Not everybody's going to be able to be there for a 4-hour slot. You might have to hold some brown bags or something. And the Center of Excellence is also the thing that's going to bring everything together where people can go to. Right now, a lot of our folks that Jim and I start working with, they're just like, everything is everywhere all the time. And so you need a jumping off point. And that's what a Center of Excellence creates. You can go there and then people can help navigate to where they want to go, right? Feedback, as we say, feedback is a gift. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, it's a gift. You can either accept it or reject it, but you should treat it as a gift. And then evangelize your successes, right? You're going to have successes. You got to write those down and really talk about them early and often, as much as you can. So people see that there really is a big upside to that. I think we're going to settle on this one. And Jim, you want to talk about the 6-week and the 4-week, a little bit of what we
Sure.
create?
Yeah, I can do that. Sure. So these are two very different engagements that ProArc offers, targeted at two different pathways. We do have kind of this maturity arc essentially goes through the journey of companies as they start to evaluate and adopt AI. The Copilot Smart Start is really all about Copilot and pretty much about what we talked about today about our journey. If you look at this and go, my God, this is too difficult for us to take on, we're not that organized, we need someone to help us. That's exactly what this Smart Start engagement is about. It helps you define those use cases, it gives you a roadmap, and make sure that your environment is ready to go, both from a security standpoint as well as an infrastructure standpoint. So this is the ability to say, we can commit to all these things that Greg and Jim talked about today, but we need some help getting organized and getting off the ground. Whereas our 4-week Impact Now assessment is really targeted around taking AI to the next level. It comes out of our digital engineering group, our data and AI group, and really allows you to explore the potential of AI beyond things just except Copilot. So this is things related to like Open Azure AI or other large language models, and it's about envisioning something you want to accomplish with artificial intelligence and bringing in our digital engineering group to assess your environment and show you the way forward for actually architecting an AI solution that you can call your own. It's essentially your own proprietary product that can be used to solve whatever problem that may be, whether it's incorporating a chatbot to your website, whether it's using AI to look for opportunities to improve your manufacturing production line, whether it's using it in very specific use cases in professional services industries. But again, that's a 4-week engagement where they first define the problem, and then we kind of solution it and come up with some recommendations, and then can even take you on further into that journey and build out that solution for you and confirm that it's going to behave the way we expect it to behave. We call responsible AI. With that said,
exactly. Well, to
we
Jim's
are
point,
all done through the content.
Yeah, go back one, Jim, just to help make your point a little bit more.
Sure.
Copilot for M365 is right now the belle of the ball, right? Everybody's talking about it. But what he's talking about in the 4-week Impact Now, we're talking about Azure driven AI and Gen AI solutions, right? So we're talking about that's a development effort to create a proof of concept and a working prototype, right? So that's a development effort, whereas the 6-week Copilot Smart Start, that's a traditional project that's focused on the rollout of the software. Copilots, everybody's talking about it, but Microsoft has AI and Gen AI solutions that are built in Azure that are just as good or better if you're trying to do something more targeted, right?
Yeah, more, I hate to use the term bespoke, right?
Bespoke,
because that's a term that's being kicked around a lot. There's also some middle area here too as well. And the middle area here between Copilot and I would say your own proprietary AI solution are things like agents and Copilot Studio, right? Those kind of straddle the line between out-of-the-box Copilot functionality and full developed solution of your own, where you're looking at low-code or no-code solution.
All right, thanks, everybody.